Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into the deep end of the pool today, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Seriously, just tap it. It's free, and it makes me feel like my existence is validated, which is exactly what we are going to talk about not needing today. Also, drop a like and leave a comment down below. Tell me one thing you have stopped giving a care about recently. I want to see a war zone in the comment section, so let's get into it. Today we're breaking down the absolute modern classic, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a by Mark Manson. Now, I know what you're thinking. You see the title and you think, oh great, another book telling me to be a heartless jerk who doesn't care about anything. But that is not it at all. If you actually read the book, you realize it is not about indifference. It's about being picky. It's about budget management, but instead of dollars, you're budgeting your emotional energy. Because let's face it, we only have so many words to give in a lifetime, and most of us are spending them like we just won the lottery on absolute nonsense. Let's start with the big problem Manson identifies right out of the gate. It is what he calls the feedback loop from hell. Here's how it works. You get anxious about something. Maybe it's your job or your relationship or the fact that you wore mismatched socks to a funeral. Then you realize you're anxious, and then you get anxious about being anxious. You think, oh no, why am I so stressed? Everyone else on Instagram looks like they're living in a euphoria of avocado toast and sunsets. Now you're stressed about being stressed. Then you get angry that you're stressed about being stressed. It's a spiral. It's like a dog chasing its own tail, but the tail is made of dynamite. The solution is the subtle art. It is the realization that wanting a positive experience is a negative experience, but accepting a negative experience is a positive experience. Manson calls this the backwards law. It's a bit trippy, so let me give you an analogy. Think of it like quicksand. The more you struggle to get out, the more you sink. If you just stop fighting and accept that, hey, I'm in quicksand, this sucks, then you actually float. Or think about trying to be cool. We all knew that kid in high school who tried way too hard to be cool. He wore the leather jacket in summer, he used slang he didn't understand, and he laughed too loud at jokes. Was he cool? No. He was desperate, and desperation is the least cool cologne you can wear. The actual cool guy was the one who didn't care if he was cool. He was just existing. So the first lesson here is to stop trying. Stop trying to be happy. Stop trying to be perfect. Happiness is like a cat. If you chase it, it runs under the couch and hisses at you. If you ignore it and just do your own thing, it eventually jumps into your lap and purrs. This brings us to the next massive point, which is that happiness is not a destination. It is a form of problem solving. Life is essentially an endless stream of problems. You fix one problem and another one pops up to take its place. You fix a car and now you're broke. You get a job to fix being broke, and now you're stressed. You quit your job to fix the stress, and now you're bored. It never ends. The goal isn't to get rid of problems because that's impossible unless you're dead. The goal is to upgrade your problems. You want better problems. You want the problem of having too much money to invest rather than the problem of not having enough money to buy ramen. You want the problem of which restaurant to take your date to rather than the problem of being lonely and talking to a volleyball named Wilson. Manson says we need to choose our struggle. Everyone wants the gold medal. Everyone wants the result. We all want to stand on top of the mountain and look cool in the photo. But not everyone wants the climb. Not everyone wants the blisters, the frozen toes, and the windburn. If you want the beach body, you have to want the sweat, the soreness, and the sadness of eating broccoli while your friends eat pizza. If you don't love the climb, you won't stick around for the view. So ask yourself, what pain do I want in my life? Because that answer will actually tell you where you're going. If you say you want to be a CEO but you hate working late nights and dealing with high-pressure decisions, then you don't actually want to be a CEO. You just want the paycheck and the ego boost. It's like saying you want to be a professional wrestler but you don't like getting hit with folding chairs. It comes with the territory. Now, let's talk about something that might hurt your feelings a little bit, but I promise it's for your own good. You are not special. I know, your mom told you that you're a unique snowflake and you're destined for greatness. But Manson argues that this entitlement is actually making us miserable. We live in a culture that celebrates the extremes. You scroll through social media and you see the top 1% of the top 1%, the richest, the fittest, the funniest. We start thinking that if we aren't changing the world or becoming a billionaire, we're failures. But statistically speaking, most of us are average. That is literally what average means. Most of us will be pretty good at some things and pretty bad at others. And that's okay. Accepting that you're average is actually liberating. It takes the pressure off. You don't have to cure a disease or colonize Mars to have a good life. You can just be a good friend, a good partner, or just really good at making sandwiches. Once you let go of the need to be extraordinary, you can actually start enjoying the ordinary things. And ironically, that's usually when people start getting good at things because they're doing it for the love of it, not because they want to be famous. It's like when you go to a karaoke bar. The person who thinks they're on American Idol and tries to hit the high notes usually ruins the vibe. The person who knows they can't sing but just belts out Bon Jovi with passion is the one everyone loves. Be the Bon Jovi fan. Don't be the failed diva. Moving on, let's discuss the concept of suffering and values. Manson talks about the rock star problem. He tells this story about Pete Best. If you don't know him, he was the original drummer for the Beatles. He got kicked out right before they became the biggest band in history. Can you imagine the therapy bills? For a long time he was miserable because his value was being a Beatle. But eventually he realized that he had a loving family, a good marriage, and a quiet life. He changed his values. Compare that to Dave Mustaine. He was the guitarist for Metallica and got kicked out before they got huge. He went on to form Megadeth, which sold millions of albums. He's a rock legend. But in interviews, he said he felt like a failure because he wasn't Metallica. He was still measuring himself by a metric he couldn't control. This teaches us about good values versus bad values. Bad values are reliant on external things like fame, money, or people liking you. You can't control those. If your value is being the most popular person in the room, you're always at the mercy of other people's opinions. That's like building a house on a foundation of Jell-O. Good values are internal. They're things you can control. Things like honesty, creativity, humility, or standing up for yourself. If your value is, I want to do my best work, then it doesn't matter if people hate it or love it. You succeeded because you did your best. Here's a modern example. Let's say your value is having a fancy car. You buy the car, you feel great. Then your neighbor buys a better car. Suddenly you feel like trash. That's a bad value. But if your value is being financially responsible and you drive a beat-up Honda Civic so you can save for your future, you feel good every time you start that rusty engine because you're living by your own metric. You're the captain of that ship, even if the ship makes a weird rattling noise when you go over 40. Now we arrive at one of the most crucial chapters, responsibility versus fault. This is a game changer. Manson makes a clear distinction here. Fault is past tense. Responsibility is present tense. Something bad happens to you. Maybe your partner cheats on you. That is not your fault. They did that. But it is your responsibility to deal with the aftermath. It is your responsibility to pick yourself up, go to therapy, and learn to trust again. If you sit around waiting for the person who broke you to come back and fix you, you're going to be waiting a long time. Think of it like a poker game. You get dealt a hand of cards. You didn't choose the cards. It's not your fault if you get a 2 and a 7, but it is entirely your responsibility how you play that hand. You can fold, you can bluff, or you can go all in. The best poker players aren't the ones who always get aces. They're the ones who play their terrible hands really well. A lot of people confuse these two. They think taking responsibility means admitting they messed up. No, it just means admitting that you are the only one who can change your situation. If someone leaves a baby on your doorstep, it's not your fault, but it's definitely your responsibility. You can't just leave it there. Well, I mean, you technically could, but then you go to jail, and that's a whole different set of problems. Next, let's talk about uncertainty. This is Manson's law of avoidance. It says that the more something threatens your identity, the more you will avoid it. If you identify as the nice guy, you will avoid standing up for yourself because that threatens your identity. If you identify as the chaotic artist, you will avoid getting organized because you think it makes you a sellout. We cling to these labels because they make us feel safe. We think we know who we are. But Manson says we should try to be a little less certain of ourselves. Growth requires being wrong. You have to be willing to look at your past self and cringe a little bit. If you don't look back at who you were a year ago and think, wow, I was an idiot, then you probably haven't learned anything. Think about it like navigating a map. Hundreds of years ago, people were certain the Earth was flat. They were terrified of sailing too far because they thought they'd fall off. That certainty kept them stuck. It wasn't until they admitted they might be wrong that they discovered the rest of the world. You need to be willing to sail off the edge of your own map. Maybe you're not the clumsy one. Maybe you're not the unlovable one. Maybe you're just telling yourself that story because it's comfortable. And how do we change these stories? That leads us to the do something principle. This is my absolute favorite part of the book because it's so practical. Most people think the order of operations is inspiration, then motivation, then action. You wait for a lightning bolt of genius, then you get pumped up, then you do the work. But Manson says that's backwards. Action isn't just the effect of motivation, it is also the cause of it. If you lack motivation, just do something. Anything, even if it's small. Action leads to inspiration, which leads to motivation, which leads to more action. It's a loop. Imagine you need to clean your house, but it looks like a tornado hit a landfill inside your living room. It's overwhelming. You're waiting for the motivation fairy to smack you in the face. She is not coming. But if you just say, okay, I'm going to wash one single dish, just one. You wash it, then you think, well, I'm already standing here wet, I might as well wash the spoon.
Then the plate. Suddenly, you have done the whole sink. Action is the spark plug. You can't steer a parked car. You have to get it moving, even just a little bit, before you can direct it where you want to go. So if you are stuck, don't sit there thinking. Do something. Put on your shoes. Open the Word document. Text that girl. Just get the momentum going. Now we have to talk about rejection, the importance of saying no. In our modern world, we are taught to be open to everything. Say yes to every opportunity. Keep your options open. But Manson argues that commitment gives you freedom. This sounds contradictory, but hear me out. If you are dating 5 people, you are not really experiencing intimacy with any of them. You are just skimming the surface. It is only when you reject the other 4 and commit to one that you get the deep rewards of a relationship, the trust, the inside jokes, the knowing exactly how they like their coffee. You have to reject things to give meaning to the things you keep. If you value everything, you value nothing. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet. If you try to eat a little bit of everything, you just end up feeling sick and confused. You have sushi next to pizza, next to chocolate cake. It is a mess. But if you commit to just the steak, you actually enjoy the meal. Boundaries are the way we define ourselves. If you can't say no to people, you are not living your own life. You are living theirs. You are a side character in their movie. You need to be the director of your own film, and sometimes that means cutting scenes and firing actors that don't fit the script. Finally, the book ends on a surprisingly dark but uplifting note: death. The final chapter is literally about dying. Manson argues that thinking about death is the only thing that gives life perspective. We spend so much time worrying about traffic jams or slow Wi-Fi or whether Becky from accounting gave us a weird look. But in the face of death, none of that matters. Death is the light by which the shadow of all of life's meaning is measured. If you knew you were going to die in a year, would you still care about that embarrassing thing you said at a party 3 years ago? Absolutely not. You would be focusing on what actually matters: your family, your passion, your legacy. Becker called this the denial of death. We distract ourselves with superficial nonsense so we don't have to face our mortality. But embracing it allows us to live more freely. It allows us to not give a about the trivial stuff. So, to wrap this all up, what does it really mean to not give a? It means looking at your life and editing it. It means clearing out the mental clutter. Imagine your brain is a house. Right now, it is probably a hoarder's house. You've got piles of old grudges, stacks of worries about what people think, and boxes of fear about the future. You can barely walk around in there. The subtle art is hiring a dumpster and throwing all that trash out. You keep the photos of your family. You keep the comfortable chair of your true passions. You keep the kitchen table where you share honest moments with friends. But the rest of it, the anxiety about your social media likes, the jealousy of your neighbor's lawn, the regret over mistakes you can't fix, it all goes in the dumpster. When you stop caring about the nonsense, you have more energy for the stuff that counts. You become lighter. You become more effective. You become the person who can laugh when things go wrong because you know it's just part of the process. So here's your homework. Pick one thing today that you're stressing about that ultimately doesn't matter. Maybe it's a rude comment online. Maybe it's the fact that you have a pimple. and just decide right now to revoke your emotional investment. Say it out loud if you have to. Say, I do not give a about this pimple. It's liberating. And that's the breakdown of the subtle art of not giving a It's not about being apathetic. It's about being selective. It's about playing the poker hand you were dealt with courage. It's about knowing that you are going to die, so you might as well live a life that feels good on the inside, not just one that looks good on the outside. If you enjoyed this summary and you want to be a part of the crew, smash that subscribe button like it's a bad habit you're trying to quit. Leave a comment below telling me which lesson hit you the hardest. Was it the feedback loop from hell? Was it the responsibility versus fault? Let me know. I read the comments, because unlike the premise of this video, I actually do give a about you guys. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Keep your values straight and your problems interesting. Peace.